Thank you so much. It's like it feels like I've come full circle from a journey I started many years ago. I'll give a brief, very brief intro on my background. Um, I grew up on a horse ranch in Texas, and at the age of 8, my dad gave me my first Canon camera. And at the very get-go, I found myself climbing into trees, photographing birds' nests, photographing the horses that we raised on our ranch. And I fell in love immediately with photography. Being able to stop time, capture a moment in time that you can reflect on and cherish was a passion of mine from the age of 8. And it never died. I went into photography in high school. I was photographing the high school almanac. I went straight into college, pursued photography, got a BFA in fashion photography and a minor in horticulture. So little did I know those two would come together at the very end. I came to New York in 1988 and had a passionate goal of becoming a renowned fashion photographer. I gained a very global status being a fashion photographer. To this date, I have, I think, 16 major covers, 2 of them Marie Claire, a few of them International Vogue covers. I've published 56 editorials for renowned publications, both international and US. But the lifestyle was digging a grave for me that I had to get out of. So I walked away from my fashion career about 12 years ago, put my camera down for a year's period. And what I found is this yearning coming back up to photograph nature, and once I picked the camera back up and started shooting, I fast learned that I found my true love. My true love is nature. The inspiration for this book, Enlightened Blooms, many years ago, I was very troubled with my work going nowhere. And for getting up and working through all these many different platforms, I found a spiritual path that opened up a new light to my photography. So all of this Enlightened Blooms is inspired by 2 different matters. One, my own spiritual process of becoming true to myself and true to my photography. And 2, Enlightened Blooms is based on a process of solarization. Solarization is this phenomenon which is known in the image world of where on the negative and print side, hues are wholly and partially distorted and transformed. So saturation is boosted, tones are reversed, pinks becomes greens, yellow becomes blues, whites and blacks become these silver pigments. So it really distorts and often destroys the file. But rather than doing a one-click process, I did a really advanced study on solarization and other people's work, and then developed my own, which I'm going to go in a minute and give you a thorough process of how I developed each one of these so you can hopefully take something home with you. But these flowers, Enlightened Blooms consist of, what is there, like 39, 40? Do we have 40 pairings? Yeah. It's a heavy book. It's beautiful. It's when you first open it up, it reminds me of Easter. It's all these beautiful colors, these pinks and pastels and oranges, and it's infused with color. And the reason that my publisher fell in love with this is because she said, okay, I love your work. I'm interested in publishing a book with you, but I'd like to give you an assignment. I'd like you to go to Barnes & Nobles and do a lot of research online of the flower books that are out there now. And I lined up 15 or 20 in Barnes & Nobles and just opened them up and went through each one of them. And I found a lot of them that I thought were somewhat successful and some that were very successful. But one thing they had all in common, they were your natural flower. They were beautiful flower pictures, some beautiful, some not so beautiful in my eye. and some well done and not so well done, but they all had a common concept, and they were all flowers in their common and natural form. And so I took this back to Glitterati, and they said, okay, what can we do different? And this was just during the time that I was taking the portfolio development workshop that was pushing me to think outside the box, to go outside the rules of thirds, to switch from color to black and white, to start printing your work, to see how it would develop, you know, through a printing process rather than having it just on, you know, a web platform. So all of these platforms really motivated me to go beyond the norm and what I understood, and pushed me to walk past fears, to try something new. And so what happened is that I started playing around with a couple of these files. This first pairing is a red parrot tulip. And when I started playing around, I just went into Lightroom initially and started sliding my sliders as far as exaggerated measures on every bar until they became completely distorted. Then I started bringing them back in and finding something that I liked. Once I found something that looked very attractive to me, I'm like, okay, how can I build a collection of prints that match this kind of technique? And it fell into solarization, but really give a thorough process to where I could teach on it, and not only teach on it, but use it to compose a book. And what happened is I initially developed these as I normally do. I work with a Nikon D800. The entire book of Enlightened Blooms was shot with a 90mm macro lens by Tamron, which is one of my favorite lenses in my kit. And so each one of these being shot with a 90mm, they're all macro. All of these are macro. I would develop them as usual in Lightroom. I work with Lightroom. Then take them over into Photoshop. Oh, let me backstage real quick. Prior to going into Lightroom, I did 2 different steps in my camera. Solarization, as I mentioned before, is this complete or partial reversal in tones. And to get that, I thought to do a layering, sort of like an HDR, but only with 2 files. I would shoot with tripod. This is all tripod work. I would shoot one underexposed and one highly overexposed. And then I would layer them. Put them in Lightroom, develop them to where they looked decent, then bring them into Photoshop. Once they were in Photoshop, what I would do is I would take like for this one instance, this has a lot of green, it had some yellow, and it had a lot of red. So I would build 3 separate layers, each with these different colors. And in the color, like say of red, I would take the hue in the saturation layer and take it all the way to the opposite. So reds would turn to an opposite color. Take a layer for yellow, yellow hue, not the saturation, the hue. Hue would change to an opposite color. Take the green, green would change to an opposite color completely. So by the time you got to that stage, these pretty much looked awful. They were completely ruined. They didn't look like flowers at all. They looked like an acid trip. You know, it was really, really bizarre. Then I would saturate and take the saturation to the red, the green, and the yellow all the way to the end. And I would have a file. I would flatten that file, which is something a lot of photographers I know don't believe in doing. But for this process, it worked well for me because I would get rid of the layers, flatten this file, put it in black and white to where I could see the tones. So I was ignoring the color to see if I have a good tonal photograph. Then once I saw that it was good in tonal, I would unflatten the file, go back into each individual layer and take out partial of the saturation and the hue that I did. So what I would do is these would be completely saturated and on their opposite tone. And then through masking, I would take out and take out and take out and take out until you started to see some of the common flower, some of the common leaves. And so what's happened in each one of these, and I'm going to show you a series in a minute, in each one of these, and this is one flower mirrored, completely mirrored. So the Enlightened Blooms is a series of paired flowers, but they're the same flower mirrored. So this is an identical flower, just as this here. This is the same flower, just mirrored flipped. And each of these processes, I put each of these flowers through a different process. So you have one that is more on a black and white level, and one that's on a more full saturated. But the removal of part of the saturation and tones left me with some of the natural flower, and then a gross part of it was left with the highly distorted. And this is hence Enlightened Blooms, because the goal was to take a common subject matter, flowers, and have you look at it differently. You know, and that was really the goal for a lot of photographers and artists alike, was to, you know, to help inspire people to go look outside of the box. What is possible if I completely distort something? What is possible if I start shooting with the polarizer? What is possible if I layer work? What is possible if I go outside of the box? You know, this is constantly being reiterated in this portfolio development, is what is possible if we do this? So I'm eternally grateful for that, because this book wouldn't have come to be without it. So let me go through and show you a few of these. This is another one. Look how beautiful this is. It's like, I mean, I couldn't be more proud. This is, see, the goal in a lot of these pairings was to create an identical image, but keep one in a color process and do another more in black and white. So these were masked, the color was completely masked out in here, where I reverted it to the black and white. So the black and white stayed, and I would bring the color back in through masking. And in here, this one is pretty much completely, this is how the image looks. The image looked on most of my files when I moved the hue and saturation. There was very little taken out here. This is a completely distorted T-rose. And same here, but on a black and white. And I'll flip through with this Gerber daisy. See, I took the effect completely out here. There's no solarization effect at all going on the flower. And I left it just around the center. And here again, a mirrored pair of the same flower. This is a apple tree. This is the cover of my book. And here again, a complete pairing, one on a more of a black and white, and another in color. This is a dahlia, and here again you'll see some of the fried areas that happened, very, very distorted in the files. Like, you know, you would consider this pretty much ruined on a print, but in this genre it worked beautifully, because it brought out something that is unseen. It's almost an alien effect. It's like, is this a flower? You know, and oh look, what is possible if I did this? What can I do to create some? This was the goal, was just to inspire. As is all my work, is to inspire. Some more, a couple other dahlias. These are one of my favorite pairings. And again, a mirrored image, more of a black and white process. A lot of the color taken out and the solarization left. Here, mostly solarization. Very little was taken out of here. You can tell there's only a selective few that you know I worked with. Here's the only one that's not a flower in my book. These are some cherry trees. This is a centerfold in my book, and beautiful. You'll see I took out some of the solarization just in the pink flowers. This is the only natural part of the image that was retained. The rest is complete solarization. This black turned to white, these pinks turned to yellow, the greens turned to brown, you know, just really a complete reversal in tone. And then some tulips that I peeled off. I did a little cheat. I peeled off a petal to get inside. You know, that it's, you know, it's learning to be creative and what works best for each of us in whatever media we're choosing to photograph. But you know, I love flowers. They're still, they're quiet, they don't talk back. You know, they're delicate, and they're really beautiful. You know, the more I study them, the more I photograph them, they inspire me. They inspire me to do better. And then some bleeding hearts. And here again, a completely different reversal in tone. These are both highly saturated and put through a very rigorous solarization process. By the way, each of these files took anywhere between 2 to 6 hours of work, you know, and I would upload some images and get to the final stages and find that some of them didn't work at all. You know, solarization, if you're working with a process like this, you know, you find that some don't work well with this medium, so you'd have to start from scratch with another. And one of my key things about these technical tools that we have is that I truly believe that they should be used as a tool and not a crutch, you know, because I truly believe that you need to start with the beautiful image. This is a heavenly image, and I wish I would have thought to bring some in its real format, and it's really, really quite beautiful. But to see it on this flip side, it looks nothing like the original file. But it looks beautiful now because I started with a good file. I started with the creative file. You know, I stuck with the rules of thirds. I studied composition and applied it. My lighting was technically good. I used, you know, very strong Lightroom techniques to bring it up to be the best it can be. You know, so I started with the file that I considered to be great, and then moved in and used solarization as a tool. I truly believe that work should, you know, all these technical things that we have at our table should be a tool rather than a crutch. You know, it really helped motivate me. And then this last one, these are again some forgot they're cherries, but there's another name for it. They're cherry blossoms, Kwanzaa. I think Kwanzaa cherry blossoms. The Bronx Botanical Gardens got involved in this book. At its completion, I went over there. They're selling it in their bookstore. They helped me sit down and give all the biological names, so we had that all correct. And I think this is Kwanzaa cherry. But here again on the right, a little bit more black and white, and then full color on the right. So I don't know that I have a lot more to speak on. This was really an opportunity for me to share my work, share the growth that I've had taking B&H's portfolio development class, and my run with doing my part, you know, getting published. It's like, you know, there's more to come. In the last 6 weeks, I've been published in 8 renowned photo magazines. I was just published in Popular Photography. I had a 16-page spread in EV Magazine. I was out in the Hamptons last week giving a speech and a lecture and a book signing. You know, glitterati has really propelled me to be my best. And I would encourage anybody that is, you know, has a heart yearning to publish a book or to do any other means, you know, be bold enough to, you know, step into the platform where you're most fearful. You know, it's really changed my life. You know, so much of these classes and meeting with publishers and, and showing my work to magazines is open to critique, and I had to be vulnerable during this whole process. It was a very fearful process, but look where it's gotten me. So it's been a wonderful journey. I'm hoping to continue with another with glitterati. I'll be showing you another one soon. And anybody that has something, that a platform or media that is somewhat polished and finished, I would invite you to approach Glitterati. They're an amazing boutique. They won the Lucy Award this year? Or
2014.
2014. They won the Lucy Award for Best Publisher. So, and it's an honor well deserved. They're on top. They really are.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.